We were very fortunate to have Dave join us from the U.S. Travel Association just about 2 years ago. He served as the Senior Vice President for Research for U.S. Travel for about 9 years. For 13 years prior to that, he served as the Chief Economist for the National Association of Manufacturers. He began his career early in the 90s, right here at Commerce, actually, first with the Economics and Statistics Administration, and then with the Bureau of Economic Analysis. He's one of those guys that has 2 degrees. He holds a master's in economics from the George Washington University and holds a bachelor's degree from Guilford College in Greensboro, North Carolina. Also with us and first up to speak today is Christina Gay. Christina joined NTTO about 2 years ago and is a member of our policy team. She's working on data visualization projects, which she's going to share obviously with you this afternoon. She's also supporting the important work of the Tourism Policy Council and the U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, and she's heavily engaged in NTTO's work with multilateral organizations such as APEC and the OECD. Christina's another one of those smart bunny rabbits and earned her master's in International Economics and Affairs from Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, and she holds a BA in International Relations from NYU. You'll hear from both of them in a minute. Before I turn the program over to these 2 wizards, however, I would like to provide a quick overview of the National Travel and Tourism Office for you. In addition to providing statistics, NTTO creates a positive climate for growth in travel and tourism by reducing international barriers to tourism. We administer joint marketing efforts, and we coordinate efforts across federal agencies through the Tourism Policy Council. The office works to enhance the international competitiveness of the U.S. travel and tourism industry and increase its exports, therefore creating U.S. employment and economic growth. In addition to our never-ending work on collecting and disseminating travel and tourism-related data and statistics that could assist your efforts, we are currently focused on the development of a new national travel and tourism strategy, which we are doing through the Tourism Policy Council. We've got TPC working groups, putting meat on the bones in 4 specific areas, promoting the U.S. as a travel destination, facilitating travel to and within the United States, ensuring diverse and accessible tourism experiences, and fostering resiliency in travel and tourism. Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo has called for a full Tourism Policy Council meeting on March 3rd to deliberate the working group's efforts. At that meeting, we also hope that the Secretary will gain agreement from the group to adopt a new international visitation and spending goal to which we can all aspire over the next 5 years. We hope to publish the new travel and tourism strategy in the late spring. In addition, our office is leading an APEC study project that will look at rising sea levels and their effect on travel and tourism. That effort is being led by Christina, and we're very excited about having successfully recommended this project to APEC and further to having gotten it approved and funded. You'll hear more about that as well in the coming months. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to just add that NTTO is also the USG's official liaison to Brand USA. As you well know, this public-private partnership is extremely important to the travel and tourism industry in the U.S., as they are the ones carrying the water for marketing and promoting the United States around the world. As I know is true for many of you on today's webinar, Brand USA has had a rough couple of years in terms of being able to carry out their mission. But I'm hopeful that as we turn the corner from pandemic to endemic, they will be able to make the switch from quietly working to keep the lights on and the U.S. at the top of mind of our potential international visitors to being fully present in the international arena. They cannot succeed, however, without your participation and support. So as you too begin to make the transition from being on hold to being on bold, you will look to Brand USA first and foremost to assist your international marketing and promotion efforts. And now, Christina, I'm going to ask you to show these good folks the COVID-19 International Travel Monitor we've built for the industry's use and kick off the rest of the webinar. Thanks so much for everybody for having joined us today. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. As Julie said, my name is Christina Gay, and I am an international economist and a trade specialist with the National Travel and Tourism Office. Just to give you a little bit of background, over the last 2 years, our office has worked to take a lot of the data that we historically produced and created and turn it into interactive monitors that are much more accessible, much more visual, and can be used in a more interactive way to get the data and statistics that is helpful to industry and accessible to a broader audience. I will be taking you through the first monitor, which is our COVID-19 travel industry monitor, and then I will be turning it over to Dave to introduce the remaining monitors. So without further ado, I will share my screen. All of these monitors are free and available on the web without a paywall. So everything that we're showing today, you can access through the links that I believe Anastasia provided in the invitation. So like I said, all of this, if you want, you could even follow along with the presentation. It's all up on the web. Can everyone see my screen? Am I sharing?
Yes, you're good.
I
Okay,
can,
great.
yes.
Thank you. This is our National Travel and Tourism Office COVID-19 Travel Industry Monitor. This monitor is meant to be a snapshot of how the industry is being affected by COVID-19. We started tracking right at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, the effects of not only COVID-19, but the subsequent travel restrictions on the industry, both international arrivals, employment. We wanted it to be a one-stop shop for how is COVID affecting U.S. travel and tourism at the moment, and how is travel and tourism recovering. So this is the first landing page. Every page of the monitor is interactive. So for example, all of the pages have a toggleable date where you can, shift the date and it will then shift if you have a certain time frame you want to look at. Up in the top right here where it says navigate the dashboard, you can click through different pages. So we have COVID-19 data, key economic indicators, travel indicators, international visitation data, travel and tourism trade and balance of payments information, and then sentiment, which I will, some consumer sentiment, which I will take you through shortly. So on this first page, we have tracking COVID-19 cases, weekly cases. So you can see where we have Delta and now Omicron. We are tracking unemployment. So this light blue line, you can see total non-farm unemployment. And then we have leisure and hospitality employment. So you can see how much, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, how much leisure and hospitality has been adversely affected in the COVID-19 crisis. And then down here, we have international arrivals to the US. So this light blue line is Canada, dark blue is total overseas volume of international arrivals to the US, and then the orange line is Mexico volume. And this is all interactive. So let's say I wanted to click on this June 1st date. If I click on this here, it'll single out the June 1st date throughout, it'll also give you the employment dots. The COVID-19 is weekly, so it doesn't have an exact June 1st date. And then it'll give you over here the June 2021 travel share of exports and travel share of imports. So the whole monitor is interactive. You can click through it. And really, there's a lot of information that you can play with. In the interest of time, I will go straight to, I think everyone knows the COVID-19 statistics, so I will go over to international visitation. So if you click on that international visitation tab, we have a more in-depth look of international arrivals to the US. We also have tracking ESTA applications. So ESTA current approved citizens, who are in the ESTA application process, and then the actual application approvals down here. And then in this bottom right-hand corner, we have total US international arrivals and departures. So again, this light blue line is total US citizens leaving, going other places. And then the dark blue line is total US inbound volume. So we see a slight slower recovery of total US inbound volume. These little eyes for every graph, if you hover over them, it will tell you the source of the data, how often we update it, and where we get it from, as well as just a little bit of information on the graph. I will move on to travel indicators. So if you click on the travel indicators tab, This will give you, not only international travel data, but some more domestic travel indicators. Over here in the upper left, we have leisure and hospitality revenue. So this is quarterly arts recreation revenue, and then we have traveler accommodation revenue. So you can see the real dip in February or Q2 of 2020. Then down in the bottom left, we have hotel occupancy. We started in 2019 as a base year. In the bottom right, this is drive travel. And then up in the top right, we have TSA passenger screenings. Like I said, again, these are all interactive. So if you click on one date, it'll pull out the relevant dates if they're included on the other graph. So you can get specific dates. We have travel trade indicators. So over here is your travel exports. We have the bar in the upper left-hand corner. This is your dollar value of travel exports in billions. And then the line is the year-on-year change. So, you can see, given the line, it looks like we're really recovering, but then when you check the dollar value compared to 2020, you see we're still below where we used to be. Similar over here up in the upper right with travel imports. We have the dollar value in the bars and then the year-on-year percent change. So big jumps in mid-April or mid-year 2021, but still not quite up to the level we used to be pre-pandemic. Finally, what I think is really interesting in the bottom left, we have the travel balance of trade. So historically, we have had a travel surplus, meaning more visitors spend money in the US than US visitors spend overseas. It contributes positively to our overall balance of trade. And for the first time in 2021, since 2000, we ran a trade deficit. So that's tracking that over here. And then we just have in the bottom right-hand corner is the travel share of US exports and imports. So historically, pre-pandemic and early 2020, we saw that travel exports and travel imports made up 7-8% share of our overall US exports and imports. And then with the pandemic, they've decreased their share of exports and imports. The last thing I will walk you through is our sentiment tab. So this is where we tried to capture how the consumer sentiment and industry sentiment towards travel is. So on the left-hand side, you will see our small business survey responses. So this is the Census Small Business Survey. And the responses are by industry. So we have arts, entertainment, and recreation is the light blue line, accommodation and food services is the dark blue line, and then total businesses is this orange line. And then down at the bottom, you can select it by survey question. So the percent responding that it will take more than 6 months for their business to return to a normal level of operation. So if we click on that, it updates. You see that total business overall throughout the pandemic expected to return to normal level of business much faster than the food services, arts and entertainment, leisure and hospitality industry. Similarly, a percent reporting a decrease in employment in the past week. So people reporting that, they lost employment. Again, we see accommodation and food services suffered much more than overall business. And then finally, percent reporting a decrease in revenues in the past week. Once again, I'm sure as a surprise to no one, accommodation and food services suffered much more, tended to report more heavily than total businesses. Over on this right side, we have consumer confidence and vacation intentions. So we have the consumer confidence index is this dark blue line, and then the bars are the percentage of Americans intending on vacationing in the next 6 months. So here we're trying to capture a little bit forward looking of the outlook of consumers in the travel industry, as well as overall consumer confidence. And then finally, down here at the bottom is plans for future business travel. So we're trying to capture not only overall leisure travel, but business travel. This dark blue line is businesses that have canceled or suspended all business travel. And then the lighter blue line is the plan to resume travel in 1 to 3 months. So you see right now where we're at in January 2022, is still less than 50% of businesses plan to resume travel in 1 to 3 months. And they've almost 50% of them have canceled or suspended all of their business travel. I will return back to the homepage, and I will end it here. I will turn it over to Dave to show you all our other monitors, which focus more on visitation. They break down a lot of these topics specifically. Dave is our Deputy Director of Research, and he will take it away from there. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Great. Thank you, Christina. Great job. And I'm blessed to work with a great team of people at NTTO. Can you all see my screen, by the way?
Yes,
can you
yes,
hear
we
me?
can see it.
Yes,
Yes.
and
Okay,
can hear
super.
you. And can see you. Awesome. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, great. I was in the travel industry. Is very fortunate that I left U.S. travel to come to NTTO because I am a data geek. I love data visualization, and I am a user of NTTO data. So when I came to NTTO, I said, "Oh my gosh, we have all of this data. Let's see if we can find new ways to share it with the industry." So I kind of had my data user mind in. So I worked with a great team of people, in addition to Christina, with a fellow by the name of Dick Champley, Mark Brown, John Turpening, a lady by the name of Claudia Wolf, who's recently retared, and we have a new hire named Raphael Gabriel, who's just come on in the last week or so. But we spent the past year, as Christina mentioned, developing a number of data visualization tools. And they all kind of fit around, each one kind of fits around a specific research program that our office is engaged in. So we have a program on inbound travel volume. That is, how many people come to the United States on a monthly basis? Where do they come from? We have a program on outbound travel, specifically airline travel. We have a cornerstone of our research program is our survey of international air travelers, which gives traveler characteristics both of inbound and well as outbound travelers to and from the United States. We create market and sector profiles for this. We also track exports and imports, which Christina mentioned. We also track the economic impact of travel and tourism through the Travel and Tourism Satellite account. As an FYI, calendar year 2020 was just published by the BEA this week. We also have a number of fact sheets, and of course, we have a number of what we call monitors or interactive databases. So if you go to the NTTO research page, which is, you see the address here is trade.gov/travel-and-tourism-research. If you go to any program that you'll see these cards, the data visualization tools will be there to click on. But you can also go to the far right where it says NTTO monitors interactive data tools, and they are all linked there. So I'm going to go and give you a demonstration of the products or the data visualization tools that we have created already. At the end of that, I will tell you what is coming, what's in store. So we're going to be producing more over the next coming weeks and months. And then I'll have a couple of other announcements. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to go over the monitors, which we call our visualization tools, in this order. One is on visitor arrivals to the United States. Two is on international air passenger travel to and from the United States. Third is on travel exports and imports. And the fourth, and I think which is the most useful and complex, is an interactive tool on the survey of international air travelers, which I think you will find very, very exciting. So with that, let's see if this works all right. So what you're looking at here is our I-94 visitor arrivals monitor. This is updated every month. So right now we have November data. We'll be publishing December data next week. So this monitor will be updated next week. It has a home page where you can see the top 5 overseas countries visitation to the United States so far this year. So this will be the first 11 months of the year. So Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. It's not your typical year in 2021. And India is then number 5. The top 5 overseas countries year to date. You see that UK is up there. That's because of a huge surge in the last month or two. And then you look at year-to-date visitations to the United States from the different regions of the world, going from Western Europe down to the Caribbean. And then you have a summary of year-to-date of international visitation to the United States, overseas, Canada, and Mexico. Now, what you'll see on the top right is there are a number of tools that you can go to see what you want to look at. So if you want to look at visitors, you click go and you go to a visitors tab. And when you go to the visitors tab, you can select a year you want to look at and a comparison year. So right now, the default is you're looking at overseas visitations in the United States in 2021. This gives you the value of every month, and it gives you what it was in 2020. If you instead want to see what it was in 2019, you can click and look at 2019, and it will update for you there. So there is 2019 visitation to the United States, and here we are in 2021. So it gives you the value of visitation, the year-over-year change, and then always on the right-hand side, look at overseas, Canada, and Mexico on a running monthly basis, and year-to-date visitation from countries and certain areas of the world, different regions. You can also not only look at just overseas, but you can pick a particular area of the world, such as we're looking at Western Europe, and it will, if I do it correctly, it will show us that Western Europe. There we go. So then we'll look at. So then you can look at Western Europe 2021 versus 2019, or versus 2020 or versus 2018. You can, in addition to that, look at visitation from different areas of the world through the ports of entry. You can look at it via visa type, business visa, pleasure visa, student visa. Again, you can look at it comparing 2021 to 2020, and you can look at it by world region. And you can also look at it by age group. So you can see what the ages of different visitors are coming to the United States. So again, this monitor is updated on a monthly basis, and we should have December data coming in midweek next week. So the next monitor I want to share with you is what we call the APIS I-92 monitor. And this is an extremely valuable tool. It is typically about 3 weeks to 4 weeks in advance of the international visitation data that we publish. But what this provides the user is the ability to look at international air passenger travel from any airport in the United States to any airport in the world that has international flights. And you can look at it on a monthly basis, going back for the last few years. As a default, what I looked at was what I chose, and I'll show you how this works. I chose Heathrow Airport and JFK. And the way you look at this information is if you are looking at arrivals to JFK from Heathrow, it's in the top left quadrant of this table. If you're looking at U.S. citizen departures to London Heathrow, it's in the bottom right. So those are the two most important figures you want to take a look at, because the pink is the non-U.S. citizens coming to New York, and the blue is U.S. citizens going to London. And if I picked for an analysis, I'll look at all the months of 2021, and you see on the left-hand side it being very, very, very flat all the way to November. And this is, you remember that the Biden administration opened up international travel to and from the United States on November 8th. And so you can see in response to this this is the international travel from Heathrow to JFK in November and December. And you see how that spikes and increases so much. But you can basically use this tool to select any city or any airport in the United States, and then you can look at any airport or any city in the world. So in case you didn't want to look at UK, and instead you maybe wanted to go to, let's go to France, and you want to look at Charles de Gaulle, and we're still highlighting it with JFK. You say this is what happened to foreign non-U.S. citizen international arrivals to JFK from Charles de Gaulle, and you saw there was a similar surge in activity. So this can be used to measure both the analysis of inbound travel and outbound travel to and from every airport in the United States that has international flights to international airports as well. I won't go into this, but you can also compare, you can choose US flag or non-US flag. So you can look at just US flag flights, or you can look at non-US flags as well. So this is a very, very powerful tool that we found extremely useful. So the next tool I want to show was developed in-house by our John Turpening, who's one of our economists at US Travel. And this is our US Travel Trade Monitor. And this is updated on a monthly basis when the Bureau of Economic Analysis releases its monthly exports and imports data. And what this shows, and this right now is for December 2021, is it shows what US travel exports were. So in December of this year, or last year, I should say, travel exports were 10.4 billion, of which 5.2 billion were what is called travel spending, which is what you think of when you think of international travelers visiting and spending money in the United States. 3.4 billion of that was spending on medical, educational, or seasonal workers. And then 1.8 billion of that was passenger air transportation exports. So that's basically the spending by international travelers on U.S. airfares and on international. It will also show you that travel and tourism as a share of services exports, where in December it was 14.9%, and of total with travel and tourism share of total U.S. exports was 4.6%. It also shows that we ran a $2.1 billion surplus. Now, as Christina mentioned, we had been running a deficit a few months ago. So if you actually go to the balance of trade section of this, and if you say, I don't want to look at December, but I want to look at, say, maybe 2021 August, it will show you that we had a deficit of $1.4 billion. And if you looked at September, we had another deficit of 1.5 billion. And then in October, we had a deficit of 1.6 billion. And then finally, in November, we got a surplus again as international travel came to the United States. In December, we ran a surplus as well. So I close that. The areas of analysis that this provides not only is a general dashboard, but also year-to-date data on exports. And if you click the toggle, you can look at imports, as well as the U.S. Travel as a U.S. share of exports. There's historical data that's provided that you can download. And there is a button on the far right, which is going to say coming soon, because as many of you may know, the Commerce Department produces much more rich data on an annual basis for country level travels, exports, and imports. So we will be developing a separate trade monitor on an annual basis that will provide this and much more information on an annual basis for every country that we have data for, which I think now is over 100. So that will be coming soon in 2021, or 2022, I should say. So finally, what I want to share is our SIOT inbound survey monitor. So as many of you know, the cornerstone of NTTO's research programs is a survey of international air travelers. So we have taken this rich data that we collect, and we have basically put it in the hands of users so destinations can more accurately and easily look and examine the travel characteristics of international visitors coming to the United States. To use this product is very simple. On default, you have the most current year, which you have is 2020. The default is overseas visitations to the United States and to the United States, to all destinations. But if you wanted to look at 2019 and you wanted to look at visitation from, let's say, the United Kingdom, and you wanted to say, well, where do they go in the United States? And if we looked at destinations and hit go, we would take it to a tab. And this is of the nearly 5 million visitors in in 2019 from the United Kingdom to the United States. These are the states that they visited. And if you wanted to see what cities they visited, you can download and see the information at a more granular level of detail. And if I go back to the filters, if we look at what type of information we're taking a look on, and we'll stay at the United Kingdom, visit the United States, we see that based on our response rate, we had 4,274 visitors, UK visitors who fit this qualification, and they represented 4.7 million international visitors to the United States. In terms of what information we can show in this monitor, we can, for example, look at trip planning, and you can say, okay, of UK visitors who came to the United States, how many of them used information from airlines or online travel agencies or personal recommendations on their visits to the United States? How far in advance did they make the decision? Both in how far in advance did they make airline reservations? We can look at purposes of activities of the UK visitors to the United States and what activities they planned, how many of them planned on shopping, sightseeing, etc. We could look at destinations they visited. We could look at spending that they went on. So you can say this is their income, and to your right-hand side, to your left-hand side, you can look at how much money they spent to the United States. And if we went back and said, well, we're not interested just in the UK traveler to the United States, but what about the UK traveler to say, oh, let's pick California. We can say that based on a response of 533 respondents, there were 753,000 UK visitors who went to California. And then we can then look at the same types of demographics. And we can also look at, say, destinations, and we can find out that of the 753,000 visitors from the UK who went to California, 186 also went to Nevada, and 52,000 went to Arizona. So this can be a very useful tool for destinations to determine and look at the characteristics of international visitors to the United States. This is also available at the MSA level. So if the data is strong enough, you can look at UK visitors to, say, Los Angeles, where there were, based on a survey of 268 respondents, we can determine that there were 383,000 visitors from the United Kingdom who went to Los Angeles in 2019. And the data that we have available on this product goes all the way back to 2012. And we'll be updating 2021 data mid-year this year. So that is a summary of the data products that we have created over the past few years. And I wanted to finish up with two announcements. One is that our office will be creating 3 additional monitors in the next 2 to 3 months. One is on a site, outbound travel monitor, where you can look at the characteristics of U.S. Residents traveling overseas. The aforementioned trade monitor that's going to look at country level data on an annual basis. And then finally, the travel and tourism satellite account, which measures the economic impact of travel at the national level. We're going to be creating a visualization tool for years 1998 through 2000. So that's kind of coming up in the new year. And the final thing I'd like to share is that our office has started to and will continue to be releasing monthly data announcements related to international inbound travel, travel exports and imports, and international air passenger traffic, which we all release on a monthly basis. And we will be releasing it to subscribers. So if you go to our website, and there is a product there called TI News, and if you subscribe to that, but by putting your email address in there, when we issue these data announcements on a monthly basis, you will get a notification. So I encourage you to do that to stay up to speed with the hopefully current state of the travel recovery of international inbound travel over the next year. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Anastasia.
All right. Well, just wow, guys, this is incredible. I have some background in data management software, and just the fact that you've come up with so many monitors and they're so easy to use and so just visual. It's incredible. Thank you so much for the time to do this. I saw Christina presenting the way this webinar came out. I saw Christina showing just one of those monitors, and I was so wowed by it that I thought, everybody else needs to know about it. So thank you so much for doing it, and thank you so much for these presentations, details. I know you could probably go over more and more and show us more, and then hopefully in the future that we will have a chance to do that. Thank you, Julie, for talking about National Travel and Tourism Office and all your initiatives, and Dave and Christina for the demos. Thank you guys for partnering with Travel and Tourism Global Team to promote this event and make sure that it is widely accessible. We are recording this, so those of you attendees that might have missed something or want to go back and take a look, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to share a recording. If you have somebody else requesting a recording, if you could put me in touch with them, I'd be happy to do that as well. For those of you who are not familiar with Travel and Tourism Global Teams, as I mentioned before, myself, Aaron Davidson, and Delia, Valdavidia are on this call. Travel and Tourism Global Industry Team is our team of U.S. and international industry specialists in over 200 global cities. We're dedicated to enhancing the global competitiveness of the U.S. travel and tourism, specifically industry, expanding market access, increasing export, and expanding the worldwide presence of U.S. firms, and fostering new business contacts. I trigger happily entered in chat the way to find us in trade.gov. Sometimes it's hard to find specific information in the very, very information happy trade.gov website. But the next steps I would say would be, reviewing all of these monitors and and looking at the data, seeing, you know, how that applies to you. And then please use that link, the trade.gov/locations, to find your local specialist and speak to them about the different programs. Additionally, you can go to trade.gov/travel-tourism-industry, and I will put that in chat as well, to look at all the different initiatives, including some of the NTTO initiatives. So I apologize, I'm not the biggest expert in the WebEx, but I do want to move us over to the Q&A, so we don't miss anything here, which means I'm just going to stop sharing because unfortunately I cannot do this. And I would ask that Christina, Dave, and Julie, if you guys would turn on your videos, and the attendees, if anybody has any questions, please, I saw one come through. If you go to, well, somebody went to Q&A, do try to use the chat for the questions, and then we'll try to address those. So one question I see says the I-90.
I think obviously that's something of more interest to the travel and tourism industry, especially marketers, because you're not marketing to Western Europe, you're marketing to France or Spain, etc. So the answer is yes. We are investigating kind of phase 2 of doing a country level analysis of that.
Okay, thank you, Dave. You guys, I'm just gonna go through chat. If we don't address something, we're gonna Delia, if you don't mind trying to copy these into some sort of a Word. Okay, then we can, if we don't address them now, we can address them at a later time in email format. So it says, may I promote a link to this presentation in our newsletter? It does out tomorrow, again in 2 weeks. Thank you, great presentation, and thank you for providing the data and easy to use tools. I would say that if you can somehow embed a video, then please reach out to me, and I think we can do this, because this whole presentation was recorded, but we didn't actually, this was demo, this was live. So there's no PowerPoint that we can necessarily share. But please reach out to me, and my contact, it was on that slide, also all the materials that came out, and I will share the recording with you. Can you provide the TI News sign up link? Julie, Dave, Christina, either one of us, if you guys can drop it into the chat, that would be great. I dropped a link to the travel and tourism industry team in here.
I also dropped the link to the NTTO website, and we've dropped links to all of the monitors that Dave and Christina have outlined today as well in the chat.
We do have a lot of questions. Do you know how well the monitors are used by the travel industry? Are these used statistics?
Okay, that's a great question. So we develop these. If your question is how are these tools being used, so we have developed them and released them. Christina's was done first. We did that first because it was based on some advice from the Travel and Tourism Advisory Board. But the other ones were released either during the second half of last year or in like the November, December timeframe. So most of them are pretty new. And we sent a letter to subscribers, to about 4,000 subscribers, and announcing these several weeks ago. So we actually met with our technical support people in ITA, and we are going to be monitoring how these products are used. The one thing I'll let you know is that when I mentioned earlier that we're going to be issuing data announcements related to international inbound travel and things of that nature on a monthly basis going forward, each one of those is going to have a call to action to visit the associated monitor they like. So we will track that going forward to see how much traction we get.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Next question. Do you plan on doing IT news releases to highlight new data on each of the monitors?
I can answer this. It depends on the monitor. So for example, my monitor's updated weekly. So we don't announce every week on TI News, but Dave announces the arrival of new monitors through TI News. And then if there's large updates, for example, the travel and tourism satellite account updating for the new year, the larger updates are updated in TI News, but the more, I would say, if it's monthly or weekly data, we don't send out a TI News report for that.
And I would follow up with Christina that most of these monitors are monthly, but some of them are annual. So our survey of international air travelers, which is like our cornerstone research product, is while we collect data on a daily basis, we produce the information on an annual basis. So when 2021 and then when 2022 data is updated in these monitors, we will issue an announcement through TI News letting people know that a new year has been added.
Okay, thank you, Christina and Dave. Next question is, let's see. I saw the ESTA data was only available through October 2021. To me, ESTA could be a leading indicator for travel if it was more current. Any chances you will get ESTA data more frequently?
It is.
I'm pretty.
Go ahead, Dave. I was just going to say it's in the monitor as soon as our office gets it. There's it as soon as we get the ESTA data from state, is it
right.
state? We put it out within the week. So we would also love to get it sooner.
Don't we all?
Exactly.
And the other thing I'll give a plug is that one of the things that Christina mentioned is that in one of her sentiment areas is consumer confidence.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Just as a flag to watch out for the for Christina's monitor next week, because vacation intentions in January just came out yesterday, and we'll be reporting that next week. The other thing is an FYI is that for Christina's monitor, while most of the data is publicly available, there are a couple of places where the data is proprietary. So while we show the graphs, some of the data is actually suppressed. And that's when that occurs, that's just because if we didn't suppress the data, we would not be allowed to show the graphs, specifically related to consumer confidence.
I also see a couple questions on exporting data, exporting PowerPoint presentations. As Dave mentioned, for my monitor, a couple of the sources that we use, such as consumer confidence, is proprietary, so you cannot export the Excel sheet. I will say all of NTTO's data, or almost all of it, if we have included it in a monitor, is available in an Excel spreadsheet on the website. It's usually linked within the same link as the monitor. And I will, Anastasia, can you let me share my screen really quick, and I can show people if they want to export things as a PowerPoint or as a PDF just from the monitor. So I can show it.
The wheel. You have the steering wheel. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, let me go ahead and show everyone how to do that. So I have the monitor up now. If you look in the upper right-hand corner of all of these monitors, you'll see a little graph button that says Export Report. If you click on that, you can do it either at the full dashboard level, or let's say you wanted a specific graph. So if I click on international arrivals to the US, let's say I know I want to export that specific graph, I can click on that graph. There's 3 dots. You click more options, and then you can spotlight just the one graph. And then let's say I want to export it. You can export the report, and then you can select your format. So like I said, since the underlying data for some of these is proprietary, you don't have the Excel option, but you can export it as a PDF, as a PowerPoint, or as an image. And you can do it at different levels. So like if I wanted to do this full screen, it's really big on my screen right now. And you can export it in different, if you want to include it in a slide or a presentation. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen.
Perfect. There was a flood of questions in the beginning, and they're sort of slowed down. But to attendees, we still have a few minutes. If you have any questions, while we wait, there was sort of an internal question, I'm guessing from one of the travel and tourism commercial service team members on whether or not NTTO will be developing some sort of a training to maybe beyond this, and maybe we can talk about this externally, and I don't want to jump the gun, or, you know, and also for us in commercial service, to use these monitors. If there's what kind of plans do you guys have, if any, at the moment?
So we are planning on increasing our expertise in these types of tutorials, and we plan on dedicating a session on each going forward. So we'll spend an hour on the SIAT inbound monitor. We'll spend a half an hour on whatever monitor. So our plans are to develop expertise and then to do that going forward, and then record them and then put them on our webpage so that people can have, if they weren't there to participate, they can see the presentations that were made maybe a month ago and learn how to use these monitors. The other thing I want to relay is that there are several monitors, specifically the SIAT monitor, where you cannot download the raw data into an Excel file because the information that's being displayed is really being generated from raw data that we don't share. So the summary data can be downloaded in PDFs and things of that nature, but we don't provide access to the actual raw data in some of those instances. However, the trade monitor, which has the monthly exports, imports, etc. data, that can be downloaded into Excel. And finally, just to let everyone know, is that NTTO now, if you go to the I-94 visitation homepage or program page, we have monthly inbound travel to the United States from 2000 all the way to the current month for every country in the world. Volume as well as year-over-year growth. So that's a new addition that we put on our webpage in the last 2 weeks. So that information is available as well.
Okay, we do have another question. Is there a portal entrance where all the data visualization tools can be found?
Yes. If you go,
can you guys drop the link?
yes, I will put the link. If you go to our NTTO research page, down at the bottom, we have a link that says monitors and visualizations, and that's where the links to all of them are. I'll put the link in the chat right now.
I have to give NTTO kudos. As I was preparing for this webinar, and I was constantly going trade.gov, and then I would put in what I wanted. So I would put in travel and tourism. NTTO is the top results. So anybody on attendees, anybody who is looking for information, go Google trade.gov, travel and tourism, and our colleagues have done a great job of their search engine optimization to get themselves on top of the search. So.
Glad you found that. We worked hard to get to the top of Google. That was a process for a while.
It's not an easy task. All right, so I see you dropped the link. We are getting towards the top of the hour. I have a question, and it's a little bit, I think, far-stretched, but perhaps it's a good wrap up. As travel and tourism includes flows of people into the country, and as well as travel and tourism industry is, at least on our side, is starting to work closely with education. Do you think that education institutions can use this monitor to benefit? Because I saw some of the information by visa types and by age. Do you think this would be useful for education and maybe in the future to do some sort of a socialization with those institutions?
Well, I would say definitely yes. Before I came to NTTO and I was the head of research at the U.S. Travel Association. Before there, I worked at the National Association of Manufacturers. So I went from the manufacturing lobbying group to the travel and tourism lobbying group. And one of the things that astonished me, I didn't know this before this, is that there are travel and tourism schools in most universities across the country, typically part of MBA programs, Virginia Tech, et cetera. They're all over the place. And many of these academics are members of the Travel and Tourism Research Association. And they are having an annual conference in a few months from now. And we plan on highlighting some of these monitors to the educational establishment in terms of travel and tourism later this summer. So I think it's a great opportunity, I think, for academia, who are a lot of times our current and past clients of NTTO as well in terms of buying specific data from us.
Well, can we squeeze one more question really quickly, if it's okay? Dave, Christina, you guys have a minute? Yes?
Sure.
Yes.
Will predictive trend reports be available in the future? Did you hear me?
Can you repeat that real quick?
Report.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Christina.
Can you repeat what type of report?
Will predictive trend reports be available in the future?
So this is referring to our forecast that we used to put out. We paused it due to the completely unpredictable nature of COVID-19. Our office used to put out a forecast, a predictive report twice a year, Dave? Once a year.
It used to be twice a year, then it went
Twice a
down
year.
to once a year, and we will return to issue a forecast when we think conditions are somewhat back to normal. Because you can tell, I mean, there was, to show you how elastic travel demand is related to COVID, there was in the late fall, November, December, there was a huge surge related to international inbound travel to the United States as the bans were lifted. But as COVID cases in the United States surged in January, there was a significant drop off in international travel just in 1 month. So it just shows you how impactful the coronavirus has been on international travel and how elastic it is. So I think when we get to a point where supply, the availability of travel is more stable, and traditional demand constraints such as GDP growth, personal income, things of that nature are more important to estimating international travel. At that point, we'll resume our forecast going forward.
Exactly. Right now it's with, if another variant comes out or there's subsequent geographic-based travel restrictions, it's just really impossible to do a comprehensive predictive forecast. That isn't going to be useless the next day if something changes.
All right, well, very great questions. Thank you everybody who asked the question. David, Christina, Julie, thank you so much for incredible information and demos and answering all these tough questions. I see that Julie is saying if anybody's interested, they're always happy to entertain the idea of doing webinars on different topics. Just reach out and let us know. And as you can see here, and I'll keep this on for a few minutes, You have the contact for Dave and Christina. Reach out, let them know you want to learn more. If you have any questions about particulars, we did answer all the questions, I think, so we're not going to be following up with those, but this is recorded. I'm not going to send it to everybody for external attendees. So if an external attendee wants to reach out to me and ask for the recording, I'd be happy to do so. And attendees, thank you so much for joining. I think this is invaluable data that you will be able to use for years to come. There's obviously improvements and new tools coming. So stay tuned for future announcements and tell everybody else that that could benefit from this for the next webinar, or if they want to see a recording. We want people to know about this and use this data because it's out there and a lot of hard work went into it. Dave, Julie, Christina, thank you so much. Delia, thank you so much for being my tech support, and Aaron for being here and organizing all this. And we are going to stop. I will stop this in a couple of minutes to give people a minute to get the contact information. All right.
Thanks, Anastasia.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Safe travels.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.